Welcome back, everybody, to the Circle of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, founder, and creator, Mr. Jon Kovach Jr., and I'm excited for today's conversation and interview because I get to introduce a friend, somebody who I met several years ago at another friend's mastermind group. And as we were both in a position of learning and growth, we have been able to observe and watch each other's transformation over the last few years, and it's been a really exciting journey. And before I bring on our guest and invite her to the stage, I just want to go over a couple quick announcements. Just wanted to say, again, congratulations to all of the authors of the 13 Steps to Riches book series and the incredible Book of Influence book series based on the work of Dale Carnegie. We recently had a book signing event at Barnes & Noble in Scottsdale, Arizona, where we had the opportunity to meet awesome customers, sell out all of our books, and also to just be in the position to hand copies of the written words of influence to incredible people seeking that information. And it is a bucket list item that I continue to check off because the more book signings we do, the more opportunities we've had to reach and help more people. It is awesome. If you haven't picked up your copy yet of the Book of Influence, go and grab it. It's anywhere. You can find it on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. That's where we usually recommend. Just found out it's on Walmart.com and Target.com too. So you can check it out there. Any one of our books are there. But enough about that. And if you want more information about any of our upcoming chapter meetings at Champion Circle, where we have business conversations, meetings, and networking that will absolutely help you accelerate the process of achieving your goals, you can either go to www.mychampioncircle.com or you can send us an email. My email is info@mychampioncircle.com. And we would be happy to give you as much information, locate a near chapter for you, connect you with our online virtual training workshops and resources, and so much more. All right. And without any further ado, I would love to introduce this individual. And I'm going to read her formal bio, but then I'm going to bring her on stage and I'm going to tell her how I felt when we first met. And I'd like to introduce you to Salenta Fox. Salenta Fox is an energy channel and coach with over a decade of experience guiding people into alignment with self to live their highest life and vision. She is an author and international keynote speaker and merges energy practices, energy psychology, and success tools so you can create your meaningful life. And let me bring her up onto the stage. Got to minimize my screen here. And I just got to say, Salenta, when I first met her, and I hope I make her blush, but when I first met her, it was in a room full of entrepreneurs, excited to learn, excited to connect. And she has always held herself to a high energy standard, which means I have always felt that this individual has always been in control, has always had a very, I guess, inviting and a magnetizing energy that allows you to want to be around her, to connect with her, to build a friendship, a contact, and a relationship. And she has always epitomized that for me. She's emulated the energy of approachableness and also has really helped other people in her ability to teach them, coach them on the psychology and also the energy training. So give it up, everybody, for Miss Salenta Fox. Salenta, welcome to the Circle of Knowledge. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, John. It's really nice to be with you again and chat.
It is. And I'm super excited to chat. And I love kicking things off because first, I've told the audience now my side of the story, but is there a side of the story you would like to share about how we first met in our connection through friends and I think it was the Prosperity Gym Mastermind. But anyways,
Yeah.
What was your side of the story?
That was a really fun time. Yeah, I think at the time I was, just meeting you. I'd like to kind of do what you did And
Okay. Thank you. You don't have to, but thank you.
no, like at that time, it was this beautiful time of uh, getting deeper into and getting more clear about what we were doing and who we were and how we were showing up. We learned a lot of good things, but um, knowing you at that time and then seeing where you've come is really inspiring to me too. I think that whole what I've just noticed is that we build each other through relationships, and we build each other through connecting and supporting each other, even if we don't see or speak to each other. And we have, like, we connect, not intimately, but um, and that's so important. And I think that part of it I really like. And at that time, I was trying to figure out what I was doing, which kind of goes on my journey. I've done all these different things, and at the time, it was intimacy and relationship
Mhm.
coaching. And always though, and then I've done the, masculine, feminine energy stuff, but always it was about like coming back to yourself, which is very fitting because that's kind of been my journey. I've done all these things and then I have to come back to myself. I gather more information and come back to myself. And I feel like all along that it's been the thread, it's alignment, right? But it's also okay, well, how can we bring out our best, our genius, and then share that with the world? And as we're evolving, how can we then, share that more and more and more? And so I do that, but I think all of our listeners, they do that too. And it's about remembering that, like, how can I bring more of myself out to serve other people,
Mm.
to
Beautifully
create value
said.
for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And thank you for that. I agree 100%. That was a very transformational time, an eager time for both of us and so many other people in that room. I'd love to
Yeah.
interview each of them and go back and say, what do you remember and how have you changed since that initial meeting? But the impact of those meetings where we're so anxious and excited to anxious is not the right word because that's not a great energy. We were so hungry for opportunity and figuring out where we were. I too was in a state where I was like, I'm working with these really cool entrepreneurial guys and trying to figure out what I'm heading to do. And it was an absolute inspiring transition of events in our lives. But I'd like
Mhm.
to ask you to go further back. And the question here I'm going to ask you is, tell us who Salenta is and why. But if we need to, let's go back and tell a story. Talk about where you're from and your upbringing. People are probably wondering, like, who is this amazing woman in front of us, and how can we get to know her a little bit more, and why is she on this journey? So the real question is who are you, Salenta, and how did you get here right now?
It's a good question.
Loaded,
Um,
loaded, long and answered question. So take your time on this one.
it is loaded, long ended. Um, there's all sorts of versions of this question, like all of us have. And I'm from South Africa originally. So when people say, how did you get here? I usually say on a plane.
Yeah.
And I came here when I was 19, actually, which
Hmm.
was, 16. I moved here with my family. And it was actually a really cool time because my parents, obviously, to be able to move to a new country, they're kind of adventurous and open. And my dad was into, he actually got into Amway, trying to find his feet here in a new country. And I started listening. We lived 2 hours away from Salt Lake City, so we would drive there all the time. And we would listen to tapes. We would listen to, books on tape, Zig Ziglar and all these things, and Think and Grow Rich. And that kind of shaped me, I think, to like where I am now. It opened my mind to growth, to expansion, to possibility, really. It opened my mind that, oh, there's more than this. And obviously, I also grew up in an environment where my parents were always open. They are dreamers. They're still dreamers, which is a very fertile uh, environment to grow up in. And then, obviously my life has brought me here, and that's had its ups and its downs and hard things, but all of those shaped me really to come into this. And so how I started doing transformational work is my own personal journey of, I was married really young and started a family, and we actually were in business together and we're really successful together. He's very good at what he does, and like our combination, like we made a lot of money. And at that time it was like, okay, now that we've had this goal, let's work on us, our relationship. And then that question, so I always say, be careful the questions you ask, because it can like totally put your life down another path. And it did, and it was for the better, even for both of us, to be able to like go within. And that just made me realize, like, I was living this life I thought I needed to live instead of living like who I was. I was like 27, 26,
Yeah.
like that Saturn return, if you're familiar with that, like astrologically, when females actually mature, and like it's a maturation phase, right? And so for me, my whole life changed, and I kind of went into healing mode, and all the things that I learned, I just transformed so much. And I realized, okay, if I could have these huge transformations in my life that will literally change the course of who I am, then others can too. But I was figuring it out by myself. I'm a reader. I love to read. And I am a studier. Like I like knowledge. That's kind of my thing. But I noticed, and I just thought everyone was like that. But then I noticed a lot of people are not. I can read something and dissect it and get the juice and implement it. And then as I started doing this, I really just felt in my heart like, oh, this is what I get to do as well. So that's where it started. And then it's been a journey of,
I, I,
shifting.
I love it. I'll interject for a second and just say
Yeah.
that your journey is so unique and different to the majority, but also I know that there's listeners and people who regularly watch this podcast who can absolutely relate. And something that's so inspiring about your story, Salenta, is that you had a life, and by asking the questions, and I'll say the right questions, I know you probably believe that too, you've turned your life around in a different way and have gone down a completely new path. And one of my favorite things, it's sort of the top of mind awareness concept, but you started your healing journey, and coincidentally that was an opportunity to help other people through their healing journey. And there's something when somebody gets excited about something, when, for example, a new piece of knowledge, something that you just learned or read, or something that just turned on the light bulb for you, that kind of information flips a switch in our brains, and all of a sudden we want to tell everyone we know, and we want to share it with other people. And I believe that that's such a powerful process to becoming a healer, a coach, and a mentor, and even a guidance, we'll call it a counselor for lack of better words, to others. And your journey is so unique in that way. You've been in the transformational coaching industry for 13 years after starting your journey. And that's what I love. That's why I bring people on the shows, because those who gain knowledge and then immediately turn around to share it with others so that they too can experience what you're going through. Now that's a beautiful gift. And I'd love to ask you more about, what are some of the spiritual healing gifts that you realized or learned or found over this transformation and this healing journey for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. You reminded me that, when I first started, it was the main thing that clicked for me during that time was returning to love. It was actually the principle that got me out of my divorce. I mean, through my divorce and out of that relationship. And I think a way that was easeful. I mean, divorce is never easy, but it was a way that for me helped it even happen, because I kept returning to, well, what is the most loving thing that I can do in this moment, right? And then when I for me, it was this anchor in love. Like when I thought, okay, because it's been such this big principle in my life, you know, then I have to share this with people. So at first I was like, oh, it's about love, like love coach. But then everyone just thought it was relationships.
Right. Right.
And I got pulled into this. But I think that is the string. And just for a side note, you know, love isn't just relationships. And I realized like love is an energy. It's like the beingness of love. It's something we emanate, we come from. Yes, I can romantically engage with someone in this way, but I'm not going to engage with everyone, with, you know, the one person that I decide to have a life with and a partner with. But the energy of love is something that if I'm always rooted in that, if I'm always coming from that, then my intentions are going to be pure. Then I'm going to have the highest good of everyone in mind. And so that's always been my guiding principle throughout all of it. And then as I went on my journey, the energy stuff started, I just started realizing like I just knew things. You know, my sister one day was like, let's do a grid with crystals and an energy clearing. And no one taught us how to do that. We just like heard about it, or maybe she saw it, but we were just kind of doing it, you know? And then, and it wasn't something I thought I would teach or do outside. It was like super private. It was like, this is like my private life. And then as I started, I put on their energy psychology. So through my transformation, I used EFT, right? I had this experience with EFT. I became an EFT practitioner. Then I went on another mastermind experience, and it was quantum emotional clearing, which was also tapping, but it was like next level. And I was already an EFT practitioner, but when I went on this cruise, it was a 30-minute long session, and I was in a state of like an emotional state at that time. I was on the cruise with my ex-boyfriend, but we like needed to share a room. There were, you know, heightened emotions. You can put yourself in that situation. And in that 30 minutes of group tapping, it was like group, but he also did like, it was energetic. I had such a huge shift. I was like, oh my gosh, this is powerful. This is what I need to do. So I went the next Monday we got back, and in that training, his thing was, you have to be more powerful energetically than the person you're clearing. Meaning that for me to be a practitioner, I had to be clear. I had to know what I was doing. And so his process of becoming a practitioner was so much different than just learning a technique, you know? And I really, really shifted in that. Like that was a huge turning point for me. And then working with clients, and I mean, just to get certified, I had to work with over 100 clients, you know? So I have done thousands of these sessions. And what happened with that is I started to realize like my natural like gifts plus, you know, the words, I just started to realize like I could clear people without the tapping. So then over the years, we stopped tapping. We would talk, and then people would like release patterns, emotional stuff, but it's also like limiting beliefs, you know, the energetic part of it. And then by the time right before the pandemic, I was tuning in more and more to my spiritual gifts and my guides, and they started saying, you need to not like coach anymore, or like one-on-ones. And I was like, what? Like, no, that's how I make money. Like, how can I just stop? And then the pandemic hit, and everyone, even all the clients I already had, they were like, time out. Like, I don't want to talk about that. I'm just surviving here, you know? And it just shifted, and I started to do, then when people came to me off like 2 months later, I was like, I actually am not doing that anymore. And I said, but I am doing this energy work. And they said, okay, fine. I was like, are you sure? The first woman, I was like, well, I don't know how it was going to look. She said, I don't care. And that summer, the reviews I got, people were like, oh my gosh. And so since then, I have come back into the coaching and then combined the two. And it's like, it's such a powerful combination, because it's like we're using our brains and our psyche, and our minds love to know what's going on. And then energetically, you're well, firstly, physically, you're just in a more calm. So, grounding meditation, the nervous system. And then when the nervous system is grounded, then also harnessing the energetics of it, which is super powerful. That's like that next level of not just feeling good, but also like, how can I create from that place? So that's what I'm practicing in my life and creating and sharing with people. And it's very fun.
You bring up some really cool concepts that I want to highlight, and I also have a couple more questions about this. But first of all, highlighting the fact that I want my listeners to understand that the more you dive deeper into concepts, ideas, methodologies, interests, you will discover a deeper sense of your gifts. And your story beautifully, sings tribute to that, because as you went deeper and deeper, it was more than what people expected. And you were able to pull yourself out of becoming that relationships coach, but more of somebody who was able to expand on the fact that love is more than just the intimacy between two individuals, but that it is an expansion of that. And for me, that's really powerful, because, as I delve deeper into, my writing or my speaking, my message, my purpose becomes so clear, and that clarity just becomes brighter and brighter. And it's funny how, like, some days I'll feel like, wow, like my purpose, my mission is just entirely clear. Like there's no question as to what I'm doing. And then there's days where I dive even deeper and I'm like, wow, there is so much I don't know about where I'm going. And it is beautiful all in and of itself. But not to backtrack, but I definitely wanted to ask you just briefly, what are your thoughts on love, and how is it more than just the intimacy or attraction between two individuals? And are there layers, are there levels to love? Just out of curiosity, and also selfishly, because this podcast, the real reason why I do this is because I get to sit front row to my new friends and be the first person to learn and grow. But just out of curiosity, what have you learned about love throughout that journey? And I know we'll get on to other stuff, but tell me more about the expansion of love.
So before I started working with people, the 3 years at my journey, I actually started writing. Wasn't writing a book, but I interviewed people. I traveled during that time, and everywhere I went, I would ask the question. So I gained this like perspective of what other people think about it. Also then tuning into myself. At that same time, I actually didn't read anything, because I wanted to know for myself. I didn't want another voice in my head. I wanted my own wisdom, and I wanted to tune into like the essence of it in a real way that was mine.
Yeah.
And what I came up with at the time, and then I started reading books, and I'm not the only one who thinks this way, which confirms to me the truth of it, is that love is a state of being. It's a presence. It's a choice that we make of how we choose to show up to another human being and to ourselves. And love is about acceptance. It's about compassion, and it's about, we talk about unconditional love. Well, that's really accepting another person, accepting everything for how it is without needing it to be a certain way to fulfill my need. And that's what we think love is. We think it's this person that I have. Firstly, it's a feeling. We think it's a feeling, and that now this person's here to make me feel in love. And if they're not doing the thing that I need them to do, then I'm not going to feel love for them anymore. But that's a relationship. That's an exchange of energy, which partnerships are that. They are, in a sense, a tiny bit transactional, because it is an exchange. It's a give and take. But love isn't that. Love is more of a presence that we choose to have around ourselves. And the more that we can open to love and loving and accepting ourselves, and that's where it starts, and opening to more of, I want to say, God energy, really. Like, you don't have to believe in God even, because I think it's something that energy is bigger than any of our beliefs. So how us humans try and conceptualize it. But if you're religious, it's nice because you can then presence like Jesus or Allah, like the epitome of what God is, but the accepting God, not the judgmental one. and or if you're into energy and you're not into religion, and it's a literal tangible energy of opening up the crown of your head and allowing that love into your, like, if you allow that light in, like, you can feel it tangibly in your body. It's an experience, you know. And so for me, I think love is a choice. I choose to accept someone and like embrace that, and that's sometimes hard. I think love is a state of being. It's like an energy that I can feel, but the love actually creates the feeling. It isn't the feeling. That's what I think.
Beautifully said. I'm learning so much. And a follow-up question, and sort of progressing the conversation to a little bit more of what you wanted to talk about. You mentioned, especially in your description before coming on the show, the quantum emotional clearing and the ability to help people through energy healing without the tapping. And just as an educational piece for my listeners who probably don't understand that, tapping is a form of energy healing. It is a physical motion, and it is easy as just, these little taps. And it can be used to redirect thoughts, energy, feelings, and so forth. And if I'm totally off base, correct me, Salenta. It is one of those alternative, according to modern medicine and practices, right? It's one of those alternative practices to help people find ways to heal differently. But it is a regular psychological practice in the field of healing, and it's so interesting. And I am fascinated because, as somebody who always looks to find improvements or places to do things better or do things easier, not to cut corners, but to make it possible for other people to reach a solution or a destination because of an increased or an enhanced practice. This idea that you can do the healing without tapping is super cool to me as well. And anyways, I'm very excited and interested to learn more about that. But just simply put, in layman's terms for my myself and my listeners, is that it is a form of healing, but there are ways to connect to the soul that don't require tapping. And would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the idea of the energy, the tapping, it was actually brought a psychotherapist in California at a radio show, and he realized that to create real change for someone, it took years and years and years of psychotherapy. And he was asking for something. He asked the question again. He asked for something quicker. He had gone to the East, like China, and learned about meridians and stuff. And so he came back, and one of his clients was sitting there, and she said, and she had a phobia of water. She could not see a swimming pool, any body of water. She hadn't taken a shower, a bath, like just innate phobia. Wow. They had worked a long time so that if she could sit somewhere, like if there was a glass, sorry about that.
It's okay. You're busy.
If there was a glass barrier, she could like be at a pool, but that was like years and years and years. Anyway, she comes, they sit down. She says, I have a headache. I don't want to do the session. He says, oh, just, tap on some points. This is your headache thing. They're chatting. She leaves. She calls him back an hour and said, I just took a shower. I don't know what happened, but I wasn't afraid anymore. So he basically, it's still an evolving modality, right? But it's when we have a trauma in our, the idea, the premise of it, when we have a trauma in our body, we're physically holding on to emotions. And that's an energetic block, like it's blocking our energetic flow of our body. If we see our body in more energetic terms, when someone yells at you, you know, if you get spanked as a child, like you have anything traumatic, our body contracts and holds it in. So what these modalities are doing that are actually super, super effective for PTSD, and they're being used now by therapists and very mainstream to release these things, is it's, however, we don't understand, it's like putting an energetic pulse, you know, like the tapping, you're physically like sending a little pulse through the meridian system, but it's working with the mind too, like your mind relaxes and releases and resets. And for some reason, it will release that the energy, it will like open, if you think of it as a clogged pipe, whatever you had in the pipe then releases it. So this is when I started to realize it was more energetic. So even, you know, I said I worked with intimacy and sexuality for women who couldn't climax. When you go into the study of that, what it is our bodies are closing in, and there's tension, resistance, like actually like even muscles. Like if someone is having a painful experience, a woman, it's because their muscles are just contracted. So through massage, like through breathing exercises, through clearing, you can open that up. And suddenly this woman who thought she was broken is now, it's like she's being able to climax and it's pleasurable suddenly. And so all of this is energetic. So for me, I'm like, okay, if you can do this to heal the body, to create balance, you know, so what I still do now, yes, we don't tap anymore. It's about opening up the centers to, you know, have more stability and groundedness, meaning that when life is like super coming at you, which life is always coming at us, we have enough resiliency and we have enough like balance to actually not just survive, but do that thing that we feel in our hearts we want to, like for you, like sharing with the world, you know, connecting people, relationships, and speaking and sharing what you have inside of you. Like we all have this beautifulness inside of us, and let's get to a place where we're stable enough to be able to then share that. And then the second part of it is not only that, if I have these tools that can make me feel better and heal me, they can also then make me expand even greater, you know. And that's where I'm playing in my own work. And I think it's very exciting and it's fun and it's like a little explorative, and yeah.
I love all of that. And again, taking copious notes here and learning from you. What a beautiful description. Let's talk about the knowledge we'd like to share with our listeners, and get into the main meat and potatoes of today's conversation. But let's talk about this concept. I mean, when people have learned something, have gained a new appreciation, or have just expanded their mind and knowledge and experiences, it's natural for them to turn around and wanting to share it with others. But even more so, and at a deeper level, let's talk about this concept that you shared with me called leading with energy, and how that is a modality or a form of healing, of helping and serving, but also reaching beyond the current status and state that most people are in. I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are on leading with energy and why that's so invaluable and important for my listeners to obtain this piece of knowledge.
Yeah. We're always leading with energy anyway. It's kind of like when people say, I'm going to teach you how to manifest. That's so cool, but you're already doing it. All day long, we're creating, right? So when we say leading with energy, it's a vibe, right? That people feel from us. When someone comes, when you meet a new person, you like have this instantaneous like vibe check. It's just something we all do, you know? And so depending on what's happening in our life that day, depending on where we are, how much sadness we're carrying, how much the weight is on weight of the world, that energetically is being transmitted. That's communicated. If we think it is, or if we think it isn't, it is. We're all, taking that in on some level. And so what this is about is being more conscious of it. It's about, firstly, bringing myself into a state where I am actually like in a more vibrant state, so that even if something is happening in my life, because something is always happening in our life, right? Where I can have tools, like just simple tools to bring me back to my center, so that if I know I'm coming on a podcast, but literally 2 minutes before, and this didn't happen, I have a fight with my partner, or my child just blew up because I have a 2-year-old, and those types of things affect our nervous system, our energy system, our hearts. That, and then coming into another state. Some people are very good at just shutting that off. But for most of us, it lingers. So how can I have just these practices to bring me back to center, stabilize me, not just because I'm coming on a podcast, just so that I can actually handle the 2-year-old, right? But then secondly, it's about, well, how can I cultivate something that maybe I don't have yet?
Yeah.
So for instance, confidence. I know that I am a confident person, but my life experience has taken that away, or maybe I haven't cultivated as much as I can yet. I want to step on a stage that is 10,000 people. Like, that feels more scary. How can I have the presence to be able to do that? And so leading with your energy is about knowing that you have the ability to cultivate those things, not in a fake way, but in a way that's like actually in your body, that you feel confident in and you can control in a way.
It's so beautifully said. And it's interesting that this could be a concept where people would say, well, how do I lead with energy? But you already said it. You said we all lead with energy, and that decision, that choice is so vital and powerful that we subconsciously and consciously make the decision to lead with what we have, or with what we're feeling, or with what we're carrying around. I totally agree with you about, having conversations right before I go on stage, or right before I press live on the air, and how that affects me, how that influences me, because you process things and it directly ties to your inner being, your soul, your energy. And that's powerful. The people who have the ability to turn that off, or turn on a different energy, in the moment, have learned to not master, but to really hone in and control their own energy levels, and to help that, or allow that to influence others. I think that's just so powerful. You bring up a couple keywords and things I'd like to highlight too. You bring up the level of confidence, in a way that once you're sure of yourself and your energy, and you decide to move forward with that energy, it creates levels of confidence. One of the words that comes to mind for me is groundedness, and being able to recognize yourself from a bird's eye view, and from the future, and from the past. You can recognize how you need to be grounded and at one piece with the world and love. And I think that's just so powerful. But when you lead with your energy, right, you start to do things differently. And because we all share and lead with energy, it's knowing how to work and operate with that. So I love this. I love this concept. It is so powerful and relatable and applicable too, because any one of us can make a small shift and change in who we are.
Yeah. And what you're saying and who we are, there's many ways to do everything, right? And the way that I've found, you asked, how do you do that? The quickest way that I found, and the most sustainable way, because, you hear like fake it till you make it. That's one way they're trying to tell you to do that.
Yeah.
And there's a more sustainable, true way, and that's coming back to yourself. That's firstly tuning into yourself on a level, like, without the stories, without what's ever happened to me, like, can I connect to the essence of who I am, my soul, my genius? And the more I can be rooted in that and connected to that, so that when things happen, it can bring me back. into that confidence. That is I think that is the most powerful tool. And, I just had an experience last week with this, where I have been pushing myself. I'm operating at my edge right now of expansion, because I'm putting more things out there, and I'm wanting to serve the world in a bigger way. And I just hired a coach, which that always pushes you to that next level. I'm doing things differently, and that's uncomfortable. Expansion can be uncomfortable, but that's also what we want, because we know it's going to get us to where we're going. And also it makes it so that I can express more of myself, right? And that's what we want. We want to feel expressed and free and alive. And at the same time, I noticed I had this low level anxiety, not enough. I was more calling it excitement, because I was like using it, right? I was writing it. But I had all these decisions to make. I was feeling this decision fatigue, and I was actually avoiding some like big things. One of them is filling out this thing for here. I had to sit down, and like, it wasn't such a big deal. Your questions, they're not that hard. It's just like 5 questions. I had to sit down and talk about myself again, like, not that hard. But because of everything, I was like at my max. So I talked to my coach, and I realized by Sunday, when I opened my computer, the anxiety came, and I was like, this is anxiety, love. This isn't like excitement. Good job, but it's anxiety.
Yeah.
And I talked to him. He made me see it was fear, and that it was actually like old patterns of like trying to people please and not do the wrong thing, like all these old patterns that I didn't notice. And once I knew it was that, and it was like not loving myself or feeling worthy, right? Which these are core things. All of us have this at some level. In that moment, I was like, oh, wait, okay, but I know how to love myself. I know how that feels. I know worthiness. And because I have connected to myself in that way, like on a very, very tangible level, it was literally a matter of 20 minutes of me just bringing myself back and thinking, and then bringing that energy in of like, oh, I know how it feels to be confident. I have pictured that future self who's confident so much that I'm so intimately like her already, that within 20 minutes it shifted. I felt different in myself, and I was presencing. An hour later, I opened my computer, and like the feeling was gone. Suddenly I felt strong, centered, like sure, all the doubts had gone, and I just did all the things. That's the power of knowing yourself. Like when I say knowing yourself, I mean like feeling the truth of who you are, so you can come back to your truth. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that part is what I'm passionate about, is about reminding us about who we are, reminding us about our greatness, our genius. And so because that is like, that's us. That's juicy.
Well, as I shared at the beginning of the show, when I first met you, Salenta, you truly do lead with that energy, and just that last explainer and educational moment really helped me understand it better. And I want to thank you. That's such a beautiful image, and a way for me to connect with the idea and the principles, but also the opportunity that is leading with my energy. Based on this knowledge and information that my listeners have now received as well, what's a challenge that you can issue to them to take action today based on what they've learned, and what would you ask them to do?
I think what I'd want them to do is just assess where you are right now, and be honest with yourself, be real with yourself, and how are you showing up energetically, emotionally, because it's all connected. And is it in alignment with like how you'd like to be showing up? Oh, of course, all of us can do it a little bit better, but and if not, what action would you take to bring yourself closer into alignment? And so That's what I would say. I do
Wonderful.
have I was going to say, I just did a mastermind this week. And in that, I have some strategies to come back to yourself. But that's just one way. There's lots of ways.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I take the invitation seriously, so I will definitely be applying that in my life. And I absolutely look forward to learning and experiencing and sharing with you what I learned from this experience. I'd love to invite my listeners that they can reach out and learn more about Salenta and learn more about her upcoming events. And I want to give her an opportunity to share that here. But you can learn more about her by going to social media and finding her. Salenta Fox is her handle, but you could also go to soulexpanded.com where you can learn more about what she's doing, how she's sharing it, how she's helping people, and what she does to either work one-on-one or in event group social settings that will allow you to experience it not alone, but with the help of others who are also expanding, as you've used that word today. And I love that word, because if we're not expanding, what are we doing, right? I love that. And we'd love to also invite you guys to take a look at an opportunity. Salenta will actually be back in the UK this coming fall. I think it's next month or August. And would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about that upcoming retreat that you're going to be hosting?
Yes, I'm hosting a retreat in Glastonbury, a sacred site. It's actually, they say, the heart's chakra of the world, energy portals. It's a very energetic place, kind of like Sedona here. And what we're doing is we're going on it's a weekend experience, 5 days, over the weekend, a soul journey experience to connect you to these hidden parts of yourself that, when I say hidden, it's not that they're hidden from you, you just haven't brought out yet. And it's about connecting to that, your genius, who you are, so that you can then integrate it into your everyday life. So it's one thing to know, but it's about how do I then ingrain it into my body and into my vision, so that when I leave on Tuesday, or that I'm not coming down from a high of an event, but instead I'm so grounded and powerfully confident in my vision and clear that I know how to then implement it. So that's the event. And the gift free, it's Be More, salentafox.com/be more. It's if you'd like to have the masterclass, it kind of guides you into some of these practices about really connecting to yourself.
If there's anything that we in this world love, it's free opportunities to learn more. And I am excited to dive into that masterclass myself. And I'd love for my listeners to engage a little bit and let me know what they're learning and what transformations they're experiencing through taking this. So send your comments and I'll forward them over to Salenta by sending them into info@mychampionscircle.com, or tell her yourself as you follow her and engage with her on social media and connect. And we invite you to take advantage of this upcoming retreat, and looking forward to those who can make it. I think it's such a cool experience and an idea. And to my listeners who might be in the UK already, please block your calendars out. Make this a priority, because your soul will thank you once you're on the path. Honestly, you'll want to experience life in a different way and expand your love and feelings. So I'm really excited about that and proud of you. And Salenta, I can't thank you enough for the information. And I know that we just breached the surface. I know there's so much more to dive into this. And we're just going to call this part 1 of our interview. We'll do part 2 probably after the retreat sometime. And I'd love to continue learning, because this is a place that needs to be, like you said earlier, this is not stuff we were taught growing up. This is not stuff that we were given access to, because in a way the world calls it the woo woo stuff, the things that might be commonly accepted as a different path. And I think more and more people need to experience this, because at the heart of it all, it is our soul. And at the heart of it all, it is our life. And our energy is the radiation of that soul. And it allows energy to flow and create so much more. At least that's how I've felt in my life. And I have so much more to learn. But all in all, Salenta, I want to just say thank you for your time today. And thank you for giving us an opportunity to dive deeper into just such a beautiful concept of healing. And my listeners, I invite all of you to learn more about her, visit her website, and go check her out and find ways to connect. And any other last things you'd like to share before we hit close on this beautiful conversation?
I love what you said about the heart, because in the past we were just taught, the way the world operates, it's safer to close your heart because otherwise you'll get hurt. And I think now, as we're realizing, like, your heart is actually what transmits your vibe the most, right? And this is how people feel you. And instead, if we can create that safety within ourselves, then to be able to open our hearts, that's what people feel. That's what people connect with. That's what people are buying from you. That's why people love being in your space, because of this. They want to feel you. And so the more we can open to that, that's where our power lies. That's how we serve people the most. And so thanks. You have always done this, Jon. So, and I've always felt that from you. You are just this bowl of energy, but bowl of love too. So open to that. So thank you for also leading with your heart.
Oh, I received that. And thank you so much. And I love this. So thank you. Salenta, part 1 we'll bring to a close. I don't know if they do this in Hollywood, but they put a wrap on part 1. Part 2 is coming soon. Can't wait for more. And Salenta, thank you again for just blessing my audience and my listeners with such valuable information. And I feel like, again, going into the concept of hypnotic rhythm, when I have conversations with Salenta, it brings me to a state of absorption where I get to take in so much, and my energy is totally influenced in a positive way to do that. And I send so much gratitude your way for that. So appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another awesome episode of the Circle of Knowledge podcast. We ask that you join us next time by tuning in on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to your podcast. Give us a subscribe. Give us some comments and some likes. Send us some 5-star reviews. It helps the show go a lot further, and we can't wait to connect with you further. With that being said, guys, we'll talk to you soon. And remember, everything you need for the success you seek is already inside of you. It just requires a little bit of action to take yourself further than you've already gone. We'll see you next time.